Hi everybody, welcome to my book, The Autobiography of Foggy Michael. My name is Michael J. Gaeta, and I'm going to read the first chapter, The Robbery, which occurred in the spring of 1980. I was there. Winter 1979 to 1980. I entered Renaissance, a hardcore drug treatment program, in November 1979 because of fear. I knew I had warrants for forgery and larceny. Because this was an inpatient program based on behavior modification and was not my first attempt at it, they made it extremely difficult for me. This is the only possible way you can be helped, they said. For you AA people out there, Renaissance was another hardcore program that gave alcohol privileges after a period of social reentry. I took mine early. Hey, this was my third attempt and I had enough. In February 1980, I had to leave before I went berserk or attacked somebody. I couldn't take the heavy-duty behavior modification that they were laying on me. It was bitterly cold the day I split, and I only had $10 to my name. I spent my first night on the streets of Waterbury, Connecticut, with a bottle of Southern Comfort and no place to go. The booze provided no comfort, and I froze. The next day, I managed to find a social service organization that agreed to help me. It was arranged that I would spend 3 weeks at the Graymore Spiritual Life Center, a drying out farm in Garrison, New York, run by the Franciscan Friars of the Atonement. At their AA meetings, one of the friars would stand up and say, "Here's the first 3 steps of AA. I can't, God can, and I don't think I'll let him." He'd always point up when he said that. And I guess that's where his God was. Where mine was, "You fucking got me." It was still cold and my 3 weeks were up. The friars gave me a bus ticket and directed me to a Father Matthews in New York City. I caught a bus to the city and even managed a job interview. I spent the rest of the day on the Bowery, panhandling with the other bums. I spent one night in the White House on the Bowery. For $3, which I begged on a street corner, I was in. The White House had one huge room, like a warehouse, with room dividers that defined your space. The lucky ones found something thick like a New York Times to sleep on, and others maybe a thin Daily News. I called my old boss, Louise Saffron, who wired me enough money for a week at the YMCA in New York City. After one night's residence, I demanded a refund and caught the 8th Avenue subway to Harlem to buy heroin. After the dope, I was really stuck, so I stole aboard the Conrail train to Bridgeport. The demons in my mind were screaming, and I began hallucinating. All I wanted to do was shoot more heroin and drink beer to put the demons to sleep. Years later, some doctor diagnosed me as paranoid schizophrenic. Who knows? In what turned out to be one of the most stupid things of my life, I stole a Les Paul guitar from someone I knew. I got myself beat up, and arrested for larceny. The courts were not considering anything less than jail time. "Your days of probation are long gone," they told me. Mercifully, my parents allowed me to move back into their house, provided I got myself a job and stayed clean. I wondered how that would happen, and I even attended a few AA meetings to see if it would work. It didn't. I hated AA. My younger brother Bobby got me a job running an offset press in a downtown print shop. During the times when my boss wasn't around, I used his equipment to print prescription blanks. Black and I developed a system and went to work. I showed him what to write, and he did the forgery. I went to different pharmacies to cash the script. We wrote for Percocet and Percodan and things like that, so we wouldn't get caught. I wanted Dilaudid or morphine, but these things are harder to fill. Someone in his 20s would have a hell of a time filling a Dilaudid script, even if it was valid. Pharmacists are not dumb and plan to keep their licenses. An obsession with robbing a large pharmacy had been with me for a long time. Black always talked me out of it. I knew that hospital pharmacies stocked the drugs I wanted: cocaine, Dilaudid, and morphine. Cocaine is still the drug of choice for certain types of facial surgery, but it is used topically, not IV, like I used it. I knew I was completely insane with this idea, but I couldn't let it go. A fantasy, dangerous and insane. Dreaming about Schedule II drugs from a hospital, I fantasized further. Because I always had such trouble finding veins for the administration of IV drugs, I thought an intravenous line would be the ticket. I wanted two, in fact, because I wanted to run the opiates in one arm and the cocaine in the other. I could sit back in my rocking chair and watch TV. I could adjust the drip rate if either drug became too heavy. I could turn up the opposing arm for an antidote. This made some kind of sense to me. Where is Perry fucking Mason when you need him? Things at the courthouse were grim. I appeared every 2 weeks and acquired the services of a public defender, public pretender. The office of the public defender never worked out well for me, and in fact, every time I had one, I went to jail. The few times when I had my own lawyer, I stayed free. The prosecutor made a plea bargain proffer to my PD, and he related to me. They want you to do 1 year, no probation and no restitution, but they want jail time because of your record. What do you want to do? Can you get me a 3-week continuance? Tell him I need the time so I can get a private attorney. No offense, sir, but I think I can do better than 1 year in jail. He got me the continuance, but I had no idea where I was going to get the money for a real lawyer. Shit. You dance, so pay the piper. Even though I managed to get a lawyer, Stu Scheinman, the prosecutor was relentless. He demanded a year in jail and would not grant any more continuances. Still living at my parents' house, I formulated a half-assed plan. The next day, Friday, May 30th, 1980, was my day in court. I had a few prescription blanks left, and I filled one in for 65 milligram Valium so I could sedate myself and allow the sentencing to take place. Early that morning, I said goodbye to my mom and dad, borrowed $20 for beer and for my script, left my wallet and license, and walked downtown. It was a cloudless day with a temperature of 75 degrees at 8 a.m. The women I saw were dressed nicely, sashaying and smiling. Shit, this was going to be hard. I couldn't wait until I filled my script and had a few beers. I thought this would make the bullpen of the court tolerable. The pharmacist had no trouble filling my forged scripts, and right next door was a packy. I purchased a 6-pack of Kinger beers and a few paper bags to hide the single cans in while I drank them. I walked down Main Street and again was struck by all the pretty girls. Usually, Bridgeport had ugly ducklings. Where did these women come from? I threw 10 Valium in my mouth and chugged a beer. So far, so good. It was about 8 more blocks to the courthouse, and I was right on schedule. According to my plan, by the time I got there and was sentenced, I would be whacked and wouldn't care what they did. I continued to chew Valium, drink beer, walk, and look at the women. Valium tastes like chalk, by the way. I rounded the corner at Golden Hill Street for the last leg of this trip. At the top of the hill, at the courthouse, I was supposed to take a right to go in. This thought cancered into my brain. Michael, are you crazy? It's too nice a day to go voluntarily into that dungeon. Fuck them. I walked over the connector from I-95 and into the hollow. I pulled out one of the prescription blanks in my pocket and I found a pen. All I could think to write at that point was biphenamine 20 capsules, also known as black beauties. Biphenamine was a combination of two types of amphetamine and was pulled off the market soon after because of all the abuse. A guy at Gonzalez's grocery brought drugs for me before, but this time I had to borrow money from him first. He gave me the dough and filling the script was easy. I made a quick $90 profit on this sale and went in search of heroin and cocaine. I scored some drugs and settled into a bar for the rest of the day. I was now wanted for failure to appear and was scared. What do I do now? I don't know. I found a joint and bought a beer and played some pool to occupy my restless mind. Time wore on and my money wore down, and soon I had to cash another script. I filled it at another drugstore and staggered back to Gonzalez. Then I headed to a safer bar on East Main Street.